On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
Out there in the world, every general contractor is facing the same weather, the same supply chain, the same subcontractor pool. The only thing we can do different is how we treat each other inside these four walls.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in. What's up, everybody? Chaz Wolfe and Gathering the Kings podcast. Today, we've got David Privitera here on the King stage. My brother, how are you?
Hello. I'm Chaz. I am fantastic. I hope you are.
I am. And guys in the audience, I want to just tell you, David and I have already established that if I ever need a fill-in, that David would be willing to do it. This is the only other guest really that's come in with great voice, or as they say, perfect face for radio.
Chaz, you are my plan B. So I hope this goes just okay for you, but great for me.
Yeah, exactly. I don't wish you ill will, but I'm ready. Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
All right, David, tell us what kind of business that you got, brother.
I'm in the commercial general contracting world. So I've been in construction now. I did the math on it. It's scary. It's my 33rd year in the industry.
You're not a spring chicken.
See now, yes, I was only 40. I'm only 45, so I did it when I was 12. No, I've been around. I've been on the block, and the beard that maybe you can or cannot see was not this color when I started.
Yeah,
it's definitely a lighter shade of gray.
Hey, that's all right. The sage stage. We use the language in Gathering the Kings, this transition from warrior to king. And what comes after king, we don't talk about a whole bunch, is sage, where you got all the knowledge and the wisdom and the gray hair. And so I think that you've already worn sage super well. It fits nice on you. But in all seriousness, I want to know, before we dive into your story, your background a little bit, I want to know what makes you tick. You're 33 years in, you're still doing it. You're here on a podcast, you're giving back. Why? Why the heck are you doing it?
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the things that surprises me is still how high energy I am for doing this as long as I have. And one of the things about this industry is that the learning curve is exponential. I may know a lot, but there's so much more I've yet to learn. So part of that is to your point, it's the giving back aspect of it. But I just enjoy sharing life lessons and the things I did pretty good and things I did horribly, and hoping to guide others to maybe not jump in the same pothole that I did.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think that helping other people, because that's in essence what you're saying, you still do it now to help other people, has that always been a driving factor for you? Has that grown over the course of time? Was it something different early on? Tell us that.
No, it was different probably when I was younger. I always had that sense that take care of others, and if everybody else is okay, I'm okay at that point too.
Yeah.
And then as it evolved, as far as leadership skill, I always talk about it as like a servant leadership mindset, bottom up type leadership. And we even our graphics, our organizational chart, we do it upside down, where I'm at the bottom and it goes up and out from there, because that's essentially how the organization works. It's the people, it's the managers and the field superintendents, it's the people that touch the clients more often than I ever will, are the ones that are really the face of the company. As we already established, I have a face for radio anyway, so it's probably a better bet.
You hear, obviously there's a book called Servant Leadership. There's this idea of top down or top up, but what you just said is that you write out your organizational chart upside down.
Yeah.
Where did you learn to do that? I mean, I love that.
It was funny. It was probably came out of a jest moment where you said all things run downhill, right? And they land squarely on your lap. But essentially, that's what it was. When we started talking about really the people who, again, touch the public, touch the customers the most, it's the front line. And that's who everybody, when they think of our company from a public perspective, that's who they're thinking of. So my job is to lift and support and push up and out, versus me thinking I have to tug or pull up from behind. It's the wrong mindset. And it's worked more than it hasn't. There are times when you have to, I think, pull along during the dark moments in the world. But for the most part, it's about supporting and being there for others. And they have and will continue to make me successful, because they're the ones that are just out there making it happen every day.
Yeah. Just the visual picture that you've given of the front lines, which really just means, like you said, they're the interactions with the customer. That could be on the sales side. It could be on the client fulfillment side. But either which way, it's like they're the ones that the customer knows. And if it is in a traditional top-down structure, then what you're saying really is that you are the face and then everything trickles down from there. Like you're delegating down, which, okay, fine. We know we got to delegate. But really what I'm hearing you say is that what that means is that everything comes to you and then it comes down, as opposed to it coming to your team, the front lines, and then eventually those things get sifted. And then just the things that you need end up on your lap at the end, as opposed to everything on your lap first. Am I understanding this philosophy correct?
That's part of it. Again, I think from my perspective is again, my legacy in this industry is not going to be the buildings that I was a part of. It's going to be, I think, the people that I've helped develop and the leaders that I've created through the lessons that I've learned. And again, to me, that's that support. Think of it as I'm the foundation and I need to build people up. So this is the way I just approach it. And it's the way I raised my family. It's the way I've helped grow this business. And it's just the way I've always led my life. And again, going back to where it all started, it's for me, it's that I just feel good and feel better when everybody around me is to the best of my ability taken care of.
Yeah.
And that's an innate wiring that I can't take any credit for. It's just it's the way God made me.
Yeah, it's something that I deeply resonate with, and it's got me super intrigued. So we're gonna have to continue the conversation. But I think for the listener too, I think there's different types of people. I think there's people lead from the front and lead from the back, and I think there's benefits or maybe challenges to both. The way that you've described, even just making sure everyone else is taken care of, I resonate with that. That's how I've run most of my companies, even thinking down to a Valentine's Day at Edible Arrangements, where if I'm in the store location, I'm literally going to make sure that everybody's got food before I would never grab a piece of pizza before I knew somebody didn't. And I think it's just the little things like that. I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but it's the same. That's just a super practical showing of what I think that we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, at company events, again, I will eat, if not last, second to last, if it's a buffet style. That's just because, again, I'm good and everybody that's working really hard, if nothing else, should be able to get what they want. And I am good with I think leaders should eat last. And that's not, I didn't come up with, somebody else came up with that, but that's real. And that's all part of it. And I think that sends a very subtle but clear message.
Yeah, 100%. Love it. Okay, so let's talk about just your story. How did you get into the business? Was it this business was the first one? Was there one before that? Just tell us about the beginning of your journey in business.
Yeah, no, it's really been, again, going all the way back all those eons ago. I thought I wanted to be an architect, and I learned very quickly in college that I was a bad designer, and that's a pretty important aspect of it. Again, it was more, I had an engineering type mind where I was more focused on the process and whatnot. Got out of school and talk about sage advice. I talk about my father, and his advice was, okay, go find a job. And I'm like, okay, I could do that. And I could read blueprints, and I stumbled into it back in 1990. And it just went from there. And I've held many different positions within the construction industry, and I've worked for a handful of companies, but I've touched it my entire career. So there's never been I've dabbled in other things more on the side, but my main gig has always been building things. And part of that starts with building teams and then eventually building product, which in this case is buildings of all shapes and sizes.
Yeah. The format there of thinking that you wanted to do one thing, but it really just led to something slightly different. I think we can all relate to that a little bit, like a bump until you can finally get to the right place. So I want to know just a little bit more about business. Like how did you reading plans and working for a company, how did that eventually turn into you running your own business? Like there's a big difference between working for somebody and doing your own thing. What was that transition for you? What did that look like?
It happened about 17 years ago, a little bit over 17 years ago. And I was going through some personal change in my life, and not necessarily the most positive experience, but did things happen. And I think there's always milepost markers in people's lives, moments where you have to take that leap of faith one way or the other. And there were some things happening in one aspect of my life that I felt like it was time to, if I'm ever going to do something, now's the time to do it. And I had met my partner who had started this company actually about 10 years before we met. And I call it one of my leaps of faith when I took this chance, because I had young children and a young family, and it was a chance for me to maybe do something more. And I jumped in, not necessarily fully understanding. Most of my business acumen occurred after the leap. It wasn't a lead up to it. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think there's a moment in time as you evolve as a professional, no matter what you're doing, where you get to that point where you begin to know what you don't know. And that's a really important time in a person's life. Because even to this day, I don't have all the answers, but I know where to go find them. And that's what I tell people. It's okay not to know, just go find out, seek higher counsel, whatever that might mean in the circumstances. And knowing, again, there are things that I wish I had known, but again, you learn lessons and all those things shape you as you go through your career. The entrepreneurial kind of bite didn't really happen until I got really probably post recession. So going back 10, 12 years ago now, when we
Right.
all felt it at different times. And we felt it
Right.
later than I think other industries because we work off backlog. And
Right.
so it was, if it happened in 2008 for most of the world, we didn't feel it till late 9 or early 10. And those are some tough lessons to learn because I don't think anybody knew how deep and how wide that economic pullback was going to go. There's some valuable lessons. And then coming out of that, though, when the pendulum began to swing back, probably again 2011, 2012, it's never stopped. And that leads us to what we're in year 3 of the pandemic, if you still want to call it that. The catalyst that has been for our business is mind-boggling. I can't fully explain why. We were considered, our industry as a whole was considered essential at the beginning of this whole darn thing. And
Sure.
I can argue that I don't agree with that, but it was. And again, supply chain issues and labor issues and inflation, price escalations, all that stuff is real, but it hasn't stopped. And part of it is where we are in the country, in the southeast part of the US, Charlotte, North Carolina. It's a robust market. It's going to be for some time. So we're very blessed to be here. But it's our growth in the last 2 years has been incredible. And I don't give credit to the pandemic, but it was a catalyst that I just didn't foresee. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. I want to know along the lines here, maybe go back to 2010-ish when it was a little bit of a crazy time for you, or maybe at the beginning. I just want to know, not when it was super easy and cush and you're crushing it like you have been, not to say that's easy, but I just want to go back to a different time. And I want to know of a good decision you made then that you can look back on now and be like, ooh, because I did that then, something that's super strategic that has led us to where we are today. What is that?
One of the things that I think has helped me, some people would say that I run fairly conservative as it relates to my business decisions. I just manage risk in it fairly well. And one of the things I've always, I think we all have egos. I think you have to have some level of an ego to get to any level of success, but keeping it in check and watching motivation. That's the word I ask. I said, why are we doing this? And I think making decisions and things that we didn't do at those moments in time. So take on a project with maybe a questionable client, or take on a project that maybe the financing was a little wonky, not taking on those legacy issues that would have impacted our business for years to come, paid us dividends. So having that conservative risk management streak that runs through me has helped us again. And again, as things get better and as you get a little bit older, a little bit wiser, you understand what risks really are out there. But in today's world, again, there's a whole bunch of new risks. So that's a big part of my role as I'm nurturing the next generation, is really think about your motivation. Why are we doing this? We're not, are you chasing, is it the right client? Is it the right location? Is it the right market segment? If you can't check all those boxes, then is it really worth doing? And if the answer is, I'm not sure, no, then it's time to just step away. And that's hard to do. It's hard to do when you're trying to keep the barn fed and signing a big new deal and everybody gets excited. But you got to think about, what if? And if you can plan for a worst case scenario, a reasonable worst case scenario, and you can see yourself navigating through it, then it's worth talking about. But if you can't tolerate what that might feel like, then it's not worth it.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I want to try to just press into this a little bit, because most of the listeners here today are in a place where they obviously want to grow, but they're calculating. It's probably a good word, right? They're wearing a lot of hats. They're making a lot of decisions, whether they realize it or not. They're probably still very much in the business every single day. And so it's tough to calculate risk from what is this going to do to us later this year, next year, 5 years from now? Because like you said, they're just trying to get the barn fed. They're just trying to get the new contract. We're just trying to survive even a little bit. Like, we're stuck in the mode. What would you say to that person who feels or is in the mode of that? How do they get to what you just said, having the poise?
You said one very subtle thing. You said working in the business and carving the time and being intentional about working on the business. Just change that one letter from I to O. And that's something that most smaller businesses don't do, whether it's they can't afford it time-wise or they're not sure of it. But taking the time, I have a cartoon on my wall that says you can't read the label from inside the jar. And somebody sent that to me and I printed it and stuck it on my wall because it's very true. Again, it's if you're in it every day in the throes of it, taking a step back and looking at and doing that, not necessarily 10-year plan, but that 12-month, 36-month planning session and looking at what moves I have to make. you have to be intentional. You have to force yourself to do it. Put time on your calendar and do it. If you don't, it's going to keep you in that cycle of just working in the business. So how do you do that? It starts with a lesson that my parents taught me, I taught my kids, and I talk about all the time, is who you surround yourself with. You got to have the best people you could find. I've had a lot of good people, nice people, but not necessarily the right people around me throughout my career. And I learned that if you can find the blend of good people that are also the right people for your team, then that's when the magic begins to happen. But if you find yourself in the business consistently, you got to step back and ask yourself, if you're a control freak, a micromanager, then I don't know how to help you. But if you really want to do this for real, you got to be willing to let go a little bit, give others around you a chance to grow, but make sure you've got the best people you can possibly find at every level, from the people that sit in the office with you to people that, your vendors, subcontractors, your clients. You got to have the right clients. If you don't, it's not worth doing. Life's too short. Old school lesson, but surround yourself with the best people you can find in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, the working on versus in and scheduling the time. It's interesting because when I talk to entrepreneurs, whether it be six-figure business owners who are looking to join our six-figure Gathering the Kings or our larger Gathering the Kings, it's usually the conversation. The seven-figure plus guys, when I say we have a 3-hour roundtable every month where it's scheduled and you're expected to be there and it's part of working on the business, and they nod their head just like you are now. Yep, that makes sense. Like, it makes sense that I would schedule time to work on the business. I come and I strategize with other owners and I get ideas and inspiration and we solve some problems and then I can go back. But a lot of the smaller guys, they're 3 hours. How am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to step away?
I'm only sleeping 3 hours. What are you talking about? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now it is not easy, and to get over that hump, and it's all relative to, I think, to what you do. I think every industry is a little different. I actually, for the longest time, I thought, okay, I've been doing this a long time. I know enough. I seek counsel when I need to. But about 18 months ago, I went out and got myself a coach. I have a CEO coach, and I'm part of that as a peer advisory group that we meet once a month, and we spend 4 hours together. And it's 12, there's 12 of us business owners. Every industry is different. But when you sit down and start listening to others, the challenges and the opportunities are very similar. Maybe the margins are different and the cadence of business is different. But the end of the day, it's the same stuff. And I'm kicking myself for only doing it for 18 months. I've been doing it for 18 years. But yeah, it's surround yourself with people in that kind of setting where it doesn't matter if they sell widgets and you sell construction services. The themes are very consistent. And I'm a huge fan of that. Huge fan.
100%. Love it. Okay. Tell me about a bad decision. You said you've got some good ones. Tell us about one of them.
Some of the good decisions I make were born out of bad decisions. Policy is born out of things not going as planned. I think early in my tenure in the role I'm in now, again, we were growing and I got out in front of my skis a little bit. And I did hire some people that weren't the right people. And it was beyond just not making money or losing money on a deal. It was more about the personal equity I burned through with clients. And for me, I kept thinking that I had to be back in the day, I played baseball. All right. And I'm going somewhere with this. So bear with me. I was a catcher, and I was trained to, when there's nobody on base and there's a ground ball, you take off and you run down, you back up the first baseman. Okay. So I trained that and I did that and I did that and I did that until a point where I realized the first baseman stopped bending down. Why? Because I was there to back him up. And I was exhausted. And I take that and apply it to business, is that I kept just backing everybody up and catching all the balls that were coming through. And as opposed to me saying, why are so many balls getting through? Is that people just got, again, good people, maybe in some cases, not even good people, and definitely just not the right people. So I have made mistakes hiring folks and aligning myself. I've gotten, during desperate times back in the recession, I did do one small deal for a client that halfway through, I don't know why I did this. The view wasn't worth the climb. The juice was not worth the squeeze, is a better way to say it.
That's right.
And it was awful. It was awful. The way I broach it in the company today is that, again, talking about people, and is that out there in the world, every general contractor is facing the same weather, the same supply chain, the same subcontractor pool. The only thing we can do different is how we treat each other inside these four walls. And it's Bible around here. We're going to have the best people we can find. And if we can't find the right client, can't find the right subcontractors, can't find the right employees, we're not going to do it. Goes back to that motivation comment. I would rather have this company pull back a little bit for the right reasons and keep the quality of life of the people who are in the business at a higher level than just try to plug the holes and keep bending down, backing up the first baseman, because that makes for some very long days.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no sustainability with
No, sir.
something like that.
No, sir. No. And it burns people out. It's a high stress business in the best of times. And you factor in all the different things we've been talking about. And it's
Yeah.
just everybody's fuse is very short.
Right.
So I got to make sure that people are getting backed up in the right way, but I have plenty of catchers to back up all the first basemen, not just one.
That's right. Yeah, I think that just something I want to point out to the listener is that I think we all as entrepreneurs know that we can run, not necessarily like better, but we got more energy in the box or in the tank. And we just forget sometimes that they don't run like we do, and we expect them to run like we do. And what that does is not only burns us out, but it burns them out, which then further burns us out because then they leave. And so I think
Right.
that everything that what you're saying, as far as if you can create systems and then obviously give things away, like you're talking about, not just feeling like you have to be involved with everything. It's really not just the longevity of you. If you won't do it for you, at least do it for them.
Exactly. No, and that's the one thing. I've been doing this a long time, but I still have some runway in front of me. And again, I sit here and think every day, what's next? I mean, I'm not saying I've hit a glass ceiling in my industry, but again, I run this company, and maybe I've taken this company as far as I can take it, and maybe we need that fresh blood. So those are things we're working on internally too, is that continuity and succession planning for the company, because that's the legacy. If we can create a situation where this company lives on to another generation and beyond, and keeps growing in a better way with better people. And my job is just to, again, keep dropping down the org chart a little bit and then
Right.
eventually kind of just stay out of the way. That's my goal, really, in its most simplest terms, is that get people ready for that next chapter and then just stay out of the way and let them run. Let them
Yeah.
run and let them set the guardrails. They're going to bang off of them. Those are the best lessons you learn, is when you bang off the guardrail. My job is to keep them going off in the ditch. That make sense?
100%. I love it. What kind of process or maybe even discipline do you have around making decisions now? So we've gone through your good and bad back then. What about now? You're at this successful point where you're even considering succession. What type of discipline do you find around decision making?
Build a smart room. Again, have people in the room with different perspectives. I think you need that diversity of thinking. If we all thought the same way, we'd be rowing the boat in a circle, right? So having people in the room that can see things from different perspectives. Again, there are some wildly talented people out there, and several of them work in this organization. Make it more of a set the standards, and ultimately we're not a democracy, but the way on the term we use is meritocracy. If people are great people and can grow, give them a chance to grow. But make sure the room is really smart and talk through things and gain those perspectives. And then if everybody's nodding their head yes, then that's a reason to move forward.
What would you say? You've mentioned having great people, the best people, you fill the room with smart people. I can only imagine when you do that, obviously the conversation is rich and the people respect the other person across the table. And they're like, wow, like not only do I feel great, but then I feel great because that person is a high caliber individual. And it's just like a rising tide. But speaking to the person who's listening right now, who's thinking, I can't afford an A player, or I can't afford multiple A players. I'm just trying to find a laborer or whatever. Like, how do they get to that mentality where they're trying to fill a room of people or smart people to have those types of conversations when they're stuck, or at least they feel stuck at the current moment where they are?
It's funny. 2 weeks ago, we had that peer advisory group meeting, and there was one gentleman who's in the group, and his approach is always go get the business first and then find the people. And I went at him a little bit saying, because I think that's backwards. You will sell with more confidence and you will be more successful and you will see a higher return on your investment if you build the right team and then go after the opportunities. Again, that doesn't mean that an opportunistic moment can't happen and you have to react to it. But that's tactical. But if you want to be strategic, you got to be willing to, and start with one. You don't have to find a whole team. If you have one person, maybe there's a person team now that, okay, if at the end of the day, if you have a question or something that's going on, who do you pivot to? If there's nobody there, then it's time to think about starting with that one person. But if there's somebody in your organization now that you trust, because it starts with that. Starts with
Right.
you have to, and that doesn't come instantly. I think you can like somebody and they got a good track record and all those things, but until a true measure of a person is how they behave when things are difficult. It's really easy to be fun and jovial and celebrate when things are good.
Yeah.
But if things are difficult, and how people behave during those moments when things are not going as planned, that's the true measure of a person. And if you've been in the trenches with somebody and they've stood by you, maybe they were waiting for you to make a decision, but they were with you, start there. But you have to be willing, again, to give up a little bit in order to go up. Don't know any other way to do it. I have had to react in a tactical way, and that works for the short term, but a long-term strategy is build it with one person that confidant, At that point, I think again, you'll be able to sell with more confidence. You'll tend to have more consistent returns. And maybe it'll be a slower rise,
Sure.
but that's okay. Yeah, life is short. I've said that, but it's a long road. There's a lot of runway out there. And
Yeah.
if you think, I don't care what you do, if it's transactional and it's going to be a one hit and you're done, then this is probably not the right conversation for you. But if you
Right.
want to have a long-term plan and you want to be able to exit with some level of quality of life, just
Right.
turn off the lights and locking the door, you got to start that thinking now, and just be slow and steady. Again, I wish I had a more profound way to say it, but I think that's ultimately it, is that build it first and then the opportunities will come, versus reacting or waiting till that great deal comes along and then I'll hire somebody. I think you'd be waiting a long time if you approach it that way.
Yeah. And then just to hammer from that other guy's perspective, he's obviously got a sales background. That's what he's comfortable with. And I would say that almost every sales background guy is going to lean to, let me just go get the client and then I'll figure it out, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But strategically, knowing what I know now, because that's how let's just run. We'll create a mess. And through the mess, we'll create systems. And again, I think that's how the majority of business owners do it. But I'm not necessarily saying it's the best way. The well thought out, especially once, that's what David's talking about right now, is that he's been through the fire. I've been through the fire. And even with Gathering the Kings, this is a little bit more of a passion project than anything. Yes, we have a mastermind group. That's peer-to-peer advisory. Yes, we charge for that. Like, it's a business, but I've been able to look at how we're building this with all of my other business experience and be like, okay, who do I need? Who are the people? And it's okay that it's more strategic now. And it's a little bit slow. I got a little bit more poise. Of course, I want things to go fast, but I want real relationships. I want a real machine on the inside where people are like, this is great, as opposed to, wow, this is a really big mess. Although it still feels like that, I'm sure, to some people in every one of our businesses.
You are who you are, and you're not going to change overnight. And if you're wired that way, and trust me, I can say these things now, but there were times where I would outrun my blocking because I was young and aggressive and wanted to get something going.
That's right.
But again, the most successful running backs in the NFL do better when they wait for their blockers to get out in front of them versus trying to outrun everybody.
So true.
Lots of sports analogies: baseball, now football. What's next?
I know. What you're the business sports coach.
I don't know about all that.
Okay, I want to know, I'm going to come at you a different angle here with some speed round questions. I want to know,
right,
if you had to dwindle your entire business down to one trackable metric, something that you would track forever and ever, and you only get to pick one, what would it be?
I thought about this, and we have so many KPIs that we utilize now, and all these different metrics that we look at. So to me, it's more about, I wish there was a way I could measure an associate's personal stress level. I think there's so many things happening in people's personal lives. We want to separate, well, that's personal versus business. That's bull. The world is intertwined. Our work life and our personal life are intertwined, especially the last couple of years with work from home and things of that nature. So to really have having an empathy gauge to make sure I fully understand what people are dealing with, because everybody's dealing with something. And some people hide it really well. Some others just you can read it as they walk in the room. But I wish I had a better understanding of what people were dealing with. Not that I could solve their problems, and maybe that's not my business, but at least I have an understanding and have that empathetic view of things. I wish, and again, that's so easy to say and so hard to make happen. But I think everybody's dealing with so many unique things in today's world at so many levels that if we can find a way to understand that, it doesn't mean we solve their problems for them, but at least it gives us a different perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just this past weekend talking with my dad and stepmom about the same topic, but one of my sisters is a counselor, and she spent some time in a school first, and she's going on to do some other counseling things. But this is the topic inside the school where she was talking about mental health and different things that are going on with different students, and the fact that someone was bringing items to school that they were going to hurt themselves with, like that nobody knew that, but she knew that because that's what her role was. And without sharing those things, but really giving the opportunity to speak up and say, hey, these things are happening. And so then I immediately go to 50 years ago, 100 years ago, when everybody was on a farm. Was this really a concern? And that's how just my simplistic mind, like, are we really dealing with this? But a lot has changed. Maybe we don't have to go out and milk cows anymore, but social media, or the fact that certain pleasures or certain even amenities that we do have that causes us to either think or not have certain things that maybe they did have 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So I think that the conversation, to your point of, if I know what's happening inside of my people, it can help you lead better, is really what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. And to your point, I think things are changing at a much faster pace. Just
Right.
think about where we were 3 years ago. And 3 years ago, pandemic, I can't even spell pandemic. And look at us now.
Right.
Look how the world has evolved, and things between technology and innovation and things like social media and just there's so many platforms now. The world is going to keep evolving at a more rapid pace. I don't know what the turn rate's going to be, but it's going to be faster. And I think what we're dealing with today, 10 years from now, it's going to be a completely different world. Again, I think it'd be a lot of positive things, but there'd be some problems that this next generation is going to have to deal with that I can't even contemplate right now.
Yeah, 100%. What book would you recommend, David, for a six-figure business owner to read?
All right. See, I'm staying in a good vein here. So talk about coaching and sports. So the book is called $1 Trillion Coach.
Okay.
And it's a biography about a guy named Bill Campbell. And Bill Campbell, and I won't do it justice, but it was written by 3 former execs for Google. Bill Campbell was a guy, he was a football player at an Ivy League school, ended up becoming the coach there. And then from there, springboard and went from the East all the way out to Silicon Valley and became this mentor and coach for people at Google, at Facebook, at Apple. And his legacy, and again, the people that he's worked with, and he was a Yankee, so he was very crude. I can relate to that. He was very crude but very straightforward, and just really built teams. And again, I'm not doing it justice, but it's a phenomenal book. And it's stories. It's a biography in a sense, but it's people telling their experiences working with Bill Campbell. And it's awesome. And I've been able to glean so many pearls of wisdom from it. So I recommend it very highly.
That's
$1 Trillion Coach. Yeah.
That's perfect. We'll put it in the show notes as well. People can click on it and get a purchase. You've already talked about, obviously, the peer advisory, and it sounds pretty similar to the setup that we have with Gathering the Kings. But I want to know, normally my question is, what do you think about it? Obviously, you already do it. What would you say to the person listening today who doesn't do it? Whether it's something local or an event that they need to go to or a mastermind, they just haven't. They don't. What would you say to that person?
Back to the ego comment I made earlier in the conversation, as a business owner, it's hard to be vulnerable. And when you're dealing with stuff that's beyond you, and in today's world, we're all dealing with things that are beyond us. There are people that are just like you out there and dealing with things, again, different industries, different parts of the world, whatever the case may be, but there's a common thread. And if you can allow yourself to be a little bit vulnerable and put it out there, it'll come back to you in waves. And it's amazing to me. The part of it is that I hear these common thread type issues from my peers, and I'm dealing with the same thing inside my own world. But when I hear for them, I have all the clarity in the world to be able to give them
So true.
those thoughts and those pearls of wisdom and those simple things in my mind. Yet I turn the mirror around, look at myself and go, dummy, why aren't you doing that kind of thing? It's amazing. So just put a little bit out there and you'd be amazed how much will come back. And most people fear is too strong, but I think it is a level of apprehension when you hear the word vulnerable. It means, oh my God, I'm exposing myself and they're going to see all my flaws. Guess what, man? We all have chinks in the armor. We've all banged off the guardrail. And the good news is you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that if we keep the mindset of, do we actually want to be better? Do we want to reach the potential, or do we want to go to the next level? Or do we just really want to stay here and make it seem like we want to go to the next level? Because if you do want to go to the next level, it usually takes some exposing. And that sounds aggressive, but it's like, I just need somebody to be able to go, you know what? I see you doing this and you probably don't notice it, but if you this or that, or switch that around or reverse engineer it, it allows for a completely new way of thinking. So
yeah, it takes intentionality. You have to be deliberate. And once you force yourself down that path a little bit, before you know it, you're strumming along. And you look forward to those moments. I look forward. I'm in a personal group and a business group, and I get things out of both of them. And some I talk, and some I do mostly listening. I think each time you have to read the room, but it's been awesome. And again, sometimes it just takes. I think you got to get to a certain point in life. But yeah, if you're going through the motions, then just stop wasting your time and your money, and just it is what it is. But if you really want to make a change, be deliberate about it. Be deliberate.
Yeah. It's good. Last question here for you, David. If you lost it all, what would you do?
I'm gonna host your podcast when you go on vacation. I told you that already. Come on.
Plan B.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's so hard to comprehend losing everything. Again, I've been doing this for so long. I still have, again, a lot of energy. So I would do something different. I would never go in the food and beverage business, but I love to cook. And my family says, you should open a restaurant. I'm like, no, I shouldn't.
No way.
Crazy. Out of your minds. Again, I think my wife says that when I go on to my next chapter, whatever that might look like. She's just, you should be a consultant. I'm like, well, I hate that word consultant. But I get asked all the time for people that I'm doing business with, people that I know, on things I'm not even part of, just to pick my brain. And I willingly do it. So I'd be a bad consultant because I wouldn't make any money doing it. But I go back to there's two moments in my work life where I'm at my happiest and one of my most energized. And that's when I'm selling to a client, or really for me, selling is helping a client figure out a problem because they've come with a project. A project is a problem, and helping them think through it and navigate it and do it with the same way I'm speaking with you now, with no preconceived notions of success on it. And the second thing is when I'm talking to young people and doing some recruiting, because that's one of the things I like to at least have a phone call with every potential candidate for 30 minutes on the phone, just want to break the ice and make them be comfortable with, hey, if I'm the top guy and you can get along with me, you can get along with anybody in this company. And just in helping young people think about what that next chapter for them might look like. So I think there's something in that world of business development / recruiting / I guess cooking. I don't know, I made that up. But at that and I love to talk. Dream job would be somebody to pay me just to do what I'm doing now with you. I'd be like, man, it'd have to be a lot too. I'm not looking for a huge profit center, just to break even kind of
just enough. There
enough to
might
get by.
be a spot in the podcasting world for you.
Okay.
You never know. There could be some advisory roles open up within Gathering the Kings as well as we continue to grow. That could be a fun overlap for sure.
Please keep me in mind then.
I think that it would be a pleasure to just continue a conversation. I think that when like-minded guys rub shoulders, man, I love the ideas that flow. And at this point I've met / done deals with / who knows with podcast guests. And so it really is a pretty incredible thing just when you put two people together in the room and you just see what happens. David, I want to know, how can the listener connect with you? I want them to have the chance to have the same access.
No, I appreciate that. The best way is probably through LinkedIn. I mean, I'm not a huge social media person personally, but I'm probably most active on LinkedIn from a business perspective. So yeah, I sent a link to my profile. So I welcome people to reach out. And that's a good way to start the conversation. And that's really how I met you, was through LinkedIn. So it does work. But back to your point, I think one thing I want to say is that people do business with people that they like. So if you can start with people that you like, and then if you can build that trust, man, oh man, that's when the magic begins to happen.
Yeah,
always
100%.
That's the best way is LinkedIn. I'd start there.
I love it. You have been absolutely incredible, and much more. You're in the king stage. I know you got that sage wisdom in there, but man, you've been very kingly here today. In all seriousness, thank you. Just incredible insight, business perspective, and story. So thank you. We wish you nothing but blessing and success on you and your family. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you so much, Chaz.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.